Hi, and welcome to this AI in C# video on the Microsoft Agent Framework. Today's going to be a bit different because this is about some of the things I don't use in Agent Framework, and it's particularly around the workflows, because I simply cannot see why they are needed. There might just be me, it might just be my scenarios, but every time I try to use a workflow, I end up writing some regular code that is much simpler. So, and it is a big part of the agent framework. At least the agent, the name says it's the agent part that is the important part. But we have this entire workflow engine, the agentic workflows and so on. But I just don't see the value in them. And again, it might be me. I would very much like an open discussion in the comments about this, because I want to see the light, but I haven't. And for that reason, let me show you some of the arguments and some examples I have made. So let's jump in. And I have made various videos on this. I've made sequential workflows, concurrent workflows, handover workflows. I've done a human in the loop. I made the AI assisted where we are more manual in our workflows. I've looked at group chat and simply just threw it away because there was no value in it. And also I've looked at all the samples from Microsoft themselves, and there's samples, but there's no real business value in my book. So it's not like I don't want to do stuff in sequence, but it's more cumbersome to do it in a workflow like this. And I know there's things about being able to checkpoint it and resume it and all these kinds of things. Again, kind of things I do don't take that long. If a workflow runs for like 5 minutes, it's a long, or an AI task runs for 5 minutes, and probably so are yours. So again, I'm not saying that you can't use workflows, but I've also heard from a lot of people that just want to use workflows for workflow's sake. And I think that's wrong to do. And that's the main part of this video. Because let's see a concurrent, no, let's start with sequential. This is the simplest one. And I made an example back in the day where we took a summary agent and a translation agent and took some legal text and then let it first summarize it and then translate it. So putting those two agents in sequence. And we can do that, and we can see we'll use 62 lines of code, and we need to do this streaming and turn token and watch for the events in order to get them out. And this is an object, so we need to know to turn it into a list of chat messages and so on. So it can certainly be done, but up here I have a exact same kind of code for sequential. And it's even taking up a bit extra here because I need a namespace and stuff because I put it into a subclass. But I do exactly the same up here. We can't save in setting up here. But then I just go in and take my summary engine, run async, get the response back, get my messages, and then take my translation and take the output of the summary response, and then we're done. This is exactly the same. So this is essentially the code I'm replacing with this code here. This code up here. It is no objects at all. It's just pure strongly typed all the way. Very, very simple to understand. So if I were to ever do sequential, I would do this. Let's look at concurrent. So concurrent is nice sometimes if you have enough tokens to do it. But in this case, it was just, again, a legal text with a legal agent and a spelling error. which will probably not run concurrent anyway, but if they could run concurrent, I have very few times where things can run concurrent like that without, because they need each other when they are in a kind of workflow. But again, we can do some of the same, and we get these again, the in-process execution and stuff like that. And if we look up in a version of that, we have again exactly the same start. We can change that. But then I will just use a task when all start the 2 agents. And then when I get both back, just write out my for each. It give exactly the same results. And these 3-4 lines of code takes away all this very hard to understand and debug as well. So why not just these 3 lines of code? Why put in an entire workflow for such simple things? And I know it's simple scenarios here, but even if it's more advanced, I would just put it out in various classes and have them run it in a simple flow. Handoff, same situation. We get some 3 different agents, an intent agent and a movie agent and a music agent, and we need to have the intent agent pass it on to or hand it off to someone of the others. And there we begin to make these with handoff, that this one can send it to these ones, and these ones can send it back to this one, and such things. And then we make our workflow run, where we need to send the events and find the right person talking and all these kinds of things. So if we do that, we can either do it by tools. So we can just set up the same agents, but instead the intent agent also get 2 tools, which are the two other agents. And then we just ask, and then we are basically done. If we want to see what agent it calls, it's not necessary. We put in a little function called middleware. But beyond that, we are down to these few lines of code compared to all this. And I simply don't understand why people want to sit and write things like this, because there's no reuse. That was one of my things. I thought in the beginning that it could make things be more reusable. I've not seen the scenario. I've simply not seen the scenario. And again, code is very reusable in general in C# in general. But this is how we could do it with just tools. But we could also do it with structured output in a much more similar fashion. We just make our agents again. And then we just use structured output to get out the type of question. Is it a movie question or a music question? Then a switch case on that, and write out with full control, with nothing making our run async for us, so we can not control anything or anything. So very simple to do. Human in the loop. Let's have a look. For the human in the loop, we need to make some agents, find the animal to guess. This is a small guessing game where we find an animal to guess and give some hints. And then we make our request port so we can get human in the loop interventions. And we need our executor down here, where it takes the input, which is the guess. If it's not the right one, then give a new hint, else say the game is over. And up here we need to, of course, start our event and listen for all these various things. So it's possible again. But if we look in just normal code, we do exactly the same up here. But then we just make a while loop in this case, or however you want to have your GUI, of course. And then we just take our guess. If the answer is right, break the loop, else give a new hint. We're saving lines of code, and it's much more simple to understand this code, in my book at least. And the most strong example is the pizza example. So if we look at the pizza example down here, where we use the executors. So if we go in here, then we need to make an order parser, and the order parser gets an AI to do structured output on that. So in here we just do this, but we need to have all this ceremony above and below for almost nothing. The stock taker is just checking through the various toppings of the order and check if mushroom is out of stock, sample here, and put it into a warning. And the success executor then says the pizza is okay, and the other one will say it is not okay and send a mail to the customer. And then we need to build the workflow, we need to build the edges, and we need to build the switch, so it switches between the end success or the warning part of it, have the workflow run, and react to the various events in it. We look at that without a workflow. We simply just go and say the input. We take our order agent and give us back an order. We immediately loop over that, and make some warnings. We check if there's warnings. If not, it says okay. Else, the other is not okay. Up here, I'm using the same objects down here, so we'll still need to have the objects and the creation of the agents. But the flow of this is so much simpler in my book to understand. So then some of you might argue, okay, what if you get a very, very complex workflow? Well, then I would probably use a workflow engine like N8N, Logic Apps, Make, all these that are actually good for that with very complex setups, and then I will build small entries into an API that could help with the scenarios that the workflow engine couldn't do by itself, because then I have that someone else takes care of running the workflow, saving all the workflow data and so on. I don't want to store all that, because even now we can do workflows and we can save how they went and so on. We still would need to build something that could show these workflows executions and so on. So there I would outsource it to a real workflow engine system. And then if I have the need, but again, this is simple code. Yes, there's some if statements. Ooh, that's scary. That's wrong. Or yes, it can break in the middle. Yes, the others can also break in the middle. And yes, there is some robustness in there to build in. But in reality, I don't see them happening. But that's for the comments of this video. Tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me what you use your workflows for. Because there is a reason why this YouTube series have not shown workflow so much, because again, every time I try to find, oh yeah, now I have my bank statement, which I made a video on how to balance my banking book. Yeah, then I could use concurrent to both check if for the dividend company and match the output or the PDF. But then suddenly I couldn't do that because I needed something from the dividend before I could actually find the PDF. And just every time there's something that turns out to be, yes, yeah, this cannot be concurrent, or yes, I'm using so many tokens that concurrent would just lead to to rate limits, or yeah, I could do this, but it would add me 50 lines extra of code and more complexity to look at it. So I can't see why workflows need. I understand why they are there. I can live with them being there, but please, sometimes you just need to write good code instead of trying to fit it into a workflow just because they're there. So that's my message, but also my question to you. Tell me why I'm wrong with this video. I really, really want to know so I can see the light, but I can't see it at the moment. But yeah, different video. Hope it still is beneficial. Hope it will spark some discussion down in the comments and help you also understand that you don't need if I'm right. And it's an if, it's not a because I'm right. If I'm right, that you don't spend your time writing code that looks like this down here, where it is so difficult to actually understand 6 months from now. But that's everything for this video. See you in the next one.